Good afternoon. I'm the first speaker of Proposition Team. We firmly support the motion that this House believes that government should strongly prioritize stopping climate change, even if it comes at the cost of economic growth. So first, I want to clarify the definition. Climate change is a long-term warming of Earth caused by human activities like burning fossil fuels and deforestation, which release greenhouse gases and trap heat. Addressing climate change can impact economic growth by requiring costly changes to energy systems, stricter regulation on factory, or reduced use of cheap but polluting resources. So what is the status quo? The status quo is that the environment will displace refugees, for example, sea level up or severe weather events. And this is a really, really urgent status quo. You have to strongly prioritize this. And what does prioritized climate change look like? We should use limit heavy industries, adopting green tech and innovations, founding renewable energy. And even if these actions would reduce economy in the short term, it will bring a stable long-term development on economy. So who are our stakeholders? Our stakeholders is the world environment itself, the poor people, and also the richest. Judge, even if we make money from economy, how can our opponents prove that the money will go into the pockets of poor people? Contradictorily, the poor people is the people that rely on the environment. They need a clean environment to produce what they need to sell, like for example, meat, fish, crops, etc. However, even with a horrible environment, the rich people can always find a solution to make their lives better because they have money. But this population only takes 1%. Developing the economic system would only increase the wealth gap. Therefore, the fact that they stay helping the economy would help everyone, especially the poor people, does not stand. Then I will explain why the climate would overweight the economy. Well, when the environment is stable, the economy will grow, even if it's slow. However, when the economy develops, it cannot compensate the irreversible harms. Then I will move on to my arguments. My first argument is the severity of climate crisis. Climate change is causing irreversible damage to the planet. Rising global temperature are leading to the melting of polar ice caps, which is causing sea level rise. This threatens low-lying coastal regions and small island nations. For example, many Pacific Islands countries are at a risk of disappearing underwater in the coming decades due to sea level encroachment. This loss of these habits means the displacement of millions of people and the destruction of unique ecosystems. And also, there is an increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather, such as heat waves, droughts, floods, and hurricanes. These events have a devastating impact on human lives and infrastructure. In 2023, regions around the world experienced record-breaking heat waves. The heat waves not only affected human health, leading to heat-related illnesses and deaths, but also have a severe impact on agriculture, reducing crop yields and causing food shortages in some areas. Also, climate change is a major driver of biodiversity loss. Many species are unable to adapt quickly enough to the changing climate conditions and are facing extinction. For example, coral reefs, which are home to a vast array of marine life, are bleaching and dying due to warming ocean temperatures. The loss of these key ecosystems disrupts the entire food chain and has far-reaching consequences for balance of nature. My second argument is about social and humanitarian reasons. Climate change has a direct impact on human health. The spread of diseases such as malaria is increasing as the range of disease-carrying insects expands due to climate changing. Additionally, poor air quality resulting from wildfires and other pollution sources are related to climate change can lead to respiratory systems and other health issues. The impacts of climate change are not evenly distributed. The poorest and most vulnerable communities are often hit the hardest. These communities have fewer resources to adapt to changing conditions and are more likely to be displaced by disasters. For example, in developing countries, small-scale farmers who depend on rain-fed agriculture are at a high risk of losing their livelihoods due to drought or floods. By addressing climate change, governments can help to reduce these inequalities and protect the most vulnerable. Judge, the last thing we want to state is that protecting the environment is a global trend like Paris Agreement and a lot of effort people made in this planet. So, Judge, we strongly believe that prioritizing stopping climate change can get more international collaboration, and it's going to truly benefit the lower class people that relies on the environment. Therefore, we urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
To the shape. We need to prove that economic growth is greater and more important than climate change. So the framing here, first of all, the status quo problem. They say that the government isn't prioritizing climate change over economic growth. But this is a but is this really a problem? The actors here are everyone because everyone is in climate change, but it's also within an economy. So the signposts here are of how it affects balance, urgency, and vulnerability, and how they're incapable to do anything without the economy. So, how it affects balance. We prefer the benefit of the economy over climate change. When we drop everything to work on fixing climate change, we forget about the needs of the economy. So we will lose vital parts of the economy, and the economy will lose money and drop down in financial status. Why is this true? It's because if the government prioritizes climate change rather than the economy, then they will sacrifice some essential parts of the economy to engage deeply in supporting the fixing of climate change. Why is this true? It's true. It's true because if the government prioritizes climate change rather than economy, then they would sacrifice some of the essential parts of economy. So what's the likelihood of this? When certain parts of the economy, for example, I'm sorry, when certain parts of when When certain parts of the economy, for example, tax fluctuates and it's spent on climate change, people lose their money. The governments, if they prioritize climate change, will likely do this, sacrificing the balance in the economy for climate change. So side prop has is basically focused on fixing climate change and dropping the economy. But this means they lose vital parts of the economy for fixing climate change. And without vital parts of the economy, people begin not to follow the law. For example, one incentive could be desperation of hunger or money. So this could probably lead to economic fail. So what's the likelihood of this? The economy will most likely fail because people would act out of incentives. Again, driving them to go out against the law. In many cases, as such, more criminals, less balance in money, food, etc. So this impacts first of all everyone, since everyone is in an economy, they're all impacted. People in the economy will have less balance, increased gap in the rich and poor the government or the people, for example, or more criminals. This is bad because it can lead to imbalance in the economy, which can separate people and also lead to more conflicts, and so society won't develop as much as opposition our world. So our second argument is about urgency and vulnerability. So side proposition declares that it's urgent and vulnerable. Climate change is urgent and we need to fix it. However, let's see whether economy is more urgent. So they have a fast decline. Economy has a fast decline, and because people will act out of something, and people need food or different requirements to survive constantly. So rather than climate change, slowly taken over, if we drop everything and try to fix that problem that we see that is big, then we'll forget that the economy that we have taken granted is deteriorating faster than climate change. And for example, there's the Great Depression, and when America was fighting, the Great Depression hit them quite rapidly, and climate change has been against us for years and years and decades, but it still hasn't hit us. The economy won't take as much, so we have a more urgent and vulnerable case here. So to wait, first of all, we have a faster decline. So the economy should be the economy should be focused on so that we don't get a negative effect. And there's a balance deterioration because inside proposition, the imbalance of economy grows and leads to more conflicts and etc. So this impact everyone because they're in an economy again, and they also and if the economy is affected by side opposition, then they will have a more balanced economy, and it will constantly survive and be able to sustain. But inside proposition, government is just trying to focus on the is just trying to focus on climate change, and this one I'm proud to oppose. Thank you.
Firstly, I'd like to talk. I'm the second speaker from the proposition side, and firstly, I'd like to talk about the rebuttal. So actually, what my opponent is saying is basically what my entire speech is actually focusing on. So I'll just leave the rebuttal. I'll just leave my response to, like, if you listen to my speech, since it's kind of just repeating my speech if I do a rebuttal right now. So I'm going to move on to my points. So my point is basically on the economic consequences of inaction. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the cost of disasters. The economic cost of dealing with aftermath of climate-related disasters is astronomical. Rebuilding infrastructures after floods or hurricanes, providing relief to affected communities, and compensating for lost agricultural production is just some of the costs. For example, the Hurricane Katrina in 2005 cost over $100 billion in damage in the U.S. These costs are often borne by taxpayers and can lead to increased debt and economic instability in the long run. And then talking about disruption of the supply chains, climate change can actually also disrupt global supply chains. Extreme weather events can damage transportation routes, ports, and production facilities. For example, droughts can reduce the availability for water and for industrial use and agriculture, leading to shortages of raw materials and higher prices. The COVID-19 pandemic has already shown how vulnerable the global supply chains are, and climate change exaggerates these vulnerabilities. And then I'm going to talk about the loss of productive ecosystems. As mentioned earlier, the loss of ecosystems like forests and wetlands due to climate change often reduces their ability to provide valuable services such as water purification, flood control, and carbon sequestration. For example, forests can act as carbon sinks, absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When forests are damaged or destroyed, their capacity to secure the carbon is lost, and they can even become a source of carbon emissions. And I'm going to conclude real quick, and I'm going to make a very quick comparison. So in conclusion, the reason that climate change should definitely be put above economic issues in the list of urgency is that we have proved to you that because we have proved to you that stopping climate change actually outweighs the economic benefits, because the climate change actually causes economic loss. If you prioritize the economy over fixing climate change, I can confidently say that all of your money and effort and time will be put to waste. As I already stated in various ways, that climate can single-handedly ruin all of the economic progress and push it back, leaving the environment to ruin itself and keep getting worse and worse and worse to ensure the economy. To ensure the economy is not a wise choice over the environment, as the environment will definitely get worse and worse, while the economy might not. Well, actually, if you choose the economy over the environment, not only will the environment get worse and worse, the economy will also get worse and worse because of the reasons I've listed before. However, if it is chosen that we should prioritize environment over the economy, not exactly over the economy, but we should prioritize fixing the environment right now, then the climate will probably get better over time, and the economy will also remain stable. But if there were no more natural disasters or environmental issues, the damage that is done cannot be reversed by money, which is what the economy brings. And I'm going to make a very quick comparison where I would like to make a comparison between the worst case scenario of proposition side, aka our side, and the best case scenario of the opposition side. The worst case scenario for the opposition side and us is that the environment will stay in the same condition and not improved. And due to many big and small industries heavily relying on the environment, the economy will also be going on quite stably. It will not be going downhill as what my opponent has actually said. So it's not true. Their argument does not stand. However, I cannot say the same thing about the opposition side. The economic stability and perhaps progress, if they're lucky, cannot reverse the damage done in the environment. In fact, the damage in the environment will most likely ruin the economic progress and push the progress back than what it was originally like. The best case scenario will be that the economy will have great improvements, such as growing stock market and having better economic co-option. That is their best case scenario. Their best case scenario, yeah. However, these economic benefits will never positively change the economic condition of the vulnerable poor in developing countries, especially the most vulnerable people, such as the one in countries that rely on tourism or the foreigners that is the majority. Even the majority of people that live in developed countries also try this. Such as many people in the US don't actually have the ability to buy the air conditioning, and actually temperatures rising higher than 35 C can actually literally kill people, and that is also one of the consequences of natural disasters. Or that the people that live in slums, as a high population density, can cause temperatures to be deadly, assuming disease don't kill them. Judge, it is easy to tell that clearly the opposition's best case scenario is not even close to proposition's worst case. Not even close. Thank you.
George, what we need to ask here is, what do you need to do to solve climate change? Well, the whole thing starts with money. And as I will explain in my argument, the economy is the very resource that you need to solve climate change, as they want to do in their world. So they said that no devastating thing happens when the economy falls down, and there's more devastating things of like environmental harms and like these weather things when we don't solve climate change. So we would like to point out that without the economy, as our first speaker mentioned, there will be a shortage of resources, money, and food. This will cause people to act against the law because they want money, especially in the poor areas of the world. then what's very likely to happen? War is very likely to happen. Countries will most likely fight over resources, including money and food, because of the shortage. Then what happens to the environment? The environment will be destroyed. A lot of heat will go into the air. And with this economic downfall and war, this heat and methane and all these bad gases will go into the air and actually make climate change worse. So they also said there's irreversible effects that money can't fix. So what irreversible effects? They don't give any example, and we would like to say that, oh, damaged bridge, we can fix that with money. We can just build it again. Oh, nothing. There's hot weather, but we can make these new technologies with money. But when you solve climate change, what can you do? What can solving climate change do to help these economic problems? By solving these economic problems, we provide a money source to solve climate change problems. But by solving climate change problems, how do you solve world hunger, poverty? How do you solve these by solving these climate change problems? Moving on to the last argument of our case, which is about how you cannot do anything without the economy. So what is the economy? The economy is a money source. Resources come from it. Without it, nothing productive can happen. So any action involving climate change is funded and fueled by money. For example, if there's a climate change activist organization, without the economy, organizations cannot function for long. So when their money runs out, they cannot function and will most likely run out of money. So why is this true? So usually taxes fund these activists. They fund the charities and the organizations. So with the downfall of the economies, all organizations are bound to fail because people will not pay taxes. Additionally, technology is also fueled by the economy. All the climate change technology, solar panels, wind turbines, all these advanced versions of these cannot be created without money. These are all created and made and taken care of by organizations with big money needs. So what would happen with these? What would happen if the economy stops growing? All the money would run out even faster for big organizations like climate change activist organizations. So what's the comparative? In our world, we focus on the economy. We create enough money to sustain the whole society for a while. We solve problems resulting to healthcare, poverty, and very important things that are very urgent in the world right now. Then they move to a slower developing problem, which is climate change. So now we'd like to weigh. The two metrics we provide is intensity and scope. So why does the economy impact everyone's scope? Because without money and development in the country, war happens, conflicts happen, and people don't have any food. Land can die and animals can get hurt as well. So this pretty much sums up. Everyone gets impacted by the economy. When the economy gets downfall and when you don't care of the economy, these conflicts can hurt even the land and the economy and can cause even more climate change. So why is this much more intense than climate change? So war kills people fast. Climate change kills people slow. When you're poor, you can die of hunger. Warming air doesn't kill people that fast. So because we have a clear metric on how economic downfall is much more intense and affects more people than climate change, and because of how we prove all the organizations and the activists cannot function without the economy, we therefore prove the effort to solve climate change would be useless without the economy. So also, if the economy fails, then they'll likely have conflicts and people will go against laws. This is why side opposition clearly takes the debate. Thank you for listening.
All right, so first I want to make a clear point on my rebuttals. That is that, well, firstly, I mean, like you said that with a bad economy, we can't do anything. But I also want to say that with a bad environment, you also can't do anything. Basically, because like we need money. I mean, like what you said is that we need money before solving climate change because bad economies are a huge problem and climate change is more non-urgent. Firstly, improving economy doesn't solve the problem. Explained by the first speaker already, I repeat. And secondly, climate change is very urgent because all this climate change causes a lot of climate refugees and poor people falling into great problems. And now I'm going to get back to our first, and now I'm going to summarize our first speaker's framing. All right, so why do we want to strongly prioritize climate change? Because the economy comes after the environment. Right now, the problem is climate change, right? Because climate change is an extremely urgent problem. Climate change leads to climate refugees. The solution is to strongly prioritize climate change. The burdens, well, the first one is that there are harm and benefits. Firstly, it is the irreversibility of climate change. With a lot of money, like even though we have a lot of money, we can't necessarily change a bad climate. We can't, right? And secondly, however, with a good environment, economic growth is always possible. And also, it is the stakeholders that are harmed. Environmentally displaced refugees caused by rising sea levels and severe environmentally displaced refugees caused by rising sea levels and severe climate weathers are the main stakeholders of this whole debate. And if they are harmed, then basically, well, this is not going into a then basically we have to prioritize like climate change. Secondly, economical benefits, because like the economical benefits doesn't directly impact to the poor and makes the wealthy groups grow, because wealthy groups only takes like only like a small amount, a super small amount, like 1%, and doesn't get affected by like the environment. And also they have the power to easily change the government's policy to their own benefit, as the poor stands a lot, that is like 99%, and they do get affected when the climate changes, and they are vulnerable and rely to the environment. And the next one is the urgency of climate change, because the climate refugees are being harmed by climate change. And since these are the stakeholders, I have said in my first like burden, that is that we have to strongly prioritize climate change. Next one is my two clash points. The first clash point: does stopping climate change overweight the cost of economic benefits? Yes. Firstly, it is the irreversibility of climate change. As I have already mentioned, that with a lot of money, we can't necessarily change a bad climate. And secondly, there are these vulnerable stakeholders, and like the wealthy, for example, if right now like the whole area is like super in a bad condition, and the climate is super bad with everyday raining and thunder and lightning, well then I mean for example, like the non-stakeholders who are the wealthy people won't get affected. They can just stay in their house and live their normal lives. But on the other hand, the climate refugees, all of those other poor people, especially even not only climate refugees, but also those like farmers and all of those people from the bottommost area of the whole society, are going to get harmed and be harmed severely. Secondly, does ignoring climate change negatively affect the world? Yes. Only poor people get affected, and since, as I have said, poor people gets 99%, which means that almost you can even say that like the whole world gets affected. And also, and it is already being explained by the second speaker. Thank you.
Judge, I want to start my speech saying that proposition is trying to row their boat without water. They just tell us what is happening when climate change isn't prioritized, but how are you going to solve this? There's no alternative in this, and they simply do not touch with the fact that you need money to solve global problems and stabilize the world financially. So first of all, going to my refutation, they say that prioritizing on stopping climate change will help poor people, and it will help like places that are going to be hit by tornadoes support. But first of all, economy also supports this, and in fact they support it better, since they can provide another like temporary shelter or something with money, which is like very important because they actually get a place to like do their daily lives. We don't need for the tornado to actually come and wait for that. We can still support everyone or these weak people with economy advancing. They say that the world is melting due to like climate change, but they keep on ignoring. To solve this, that is why we need to push the economy and prioritize it, since it's more urgent and the economy is advancing in a very important and is very important for countries, and also because people are positively affected. They say that like we can't change bad climates with money. But first of all, as the info side and as we say, technology is going to advance in the future. And the info side says that climate change is caused by human activities, which means that which means that we can easily fix it, not easily, but we can still fix it when we build robots or these like tools or something to like pick up litter in the ground and still make even at least the amount of effort that like we want to do to solve these global problems. And that is why we need like financial support, which is why we need to support the economy here. And for our reconstructions, they say that like climate change being stable leads to a stable economy. But first of all, we think that this is the opposite because they don't first of all give any alternative of how they're going to solve climate change. But why we think is the opposite way, because you need a stable economy to get a stable climate change and to solve other global problems. That is why climate change can like save a lot of lives for poor people and these weak people, which affect minorities too, and also like help the world globally, since we get financial support or we give financial support to a lot of people because we prioritize the growth of the economy. Let's look at the classes here. What is more important to society in this debate? In our world, there's money to make it there's money to support the economy, and the problems happening in the world are going to be a bit stabler due to these problems getting fixed by money, which is why this is because money can build these tools or things that can help solve climate change, which is why we need money in the first place. Then they say that and also we think that economy support should be first, then like solving global issues, because we solve conflicts and affect a lot of people in a positive way. And we also solve global problems and stop an economic downfall. Their side, they don't have any urgency in these cases. They don't give any alternative how they're going to solve this climate change that they really argue about. And that is why we need to support the economy, because we get money, we can solve global problems, and we can also fix the world in a better way. And this is why I think that our side takes the debate home. Thank you.
Judge, we would like to start by asking proposition. Who would have the incentive to solve climate change if they don't have money to eat or live? As we said, these desolate circumstances of economic downfall is too great. So also we would like to say that they didn't say how they were going to solve climate change, so we will provide the answers for them. What they need is either technology or climate change activism. Money is needed for both of these options. Why? Because to have technology, you need money to innovate and develop it. 2, climate change activism, you need money to fund these activisms or fund these organizations, as we explained in our argument. And what we like to weigh this debate on is scope and intensity. So, as we already explained, these economic downfall causes a lot of conflicts, a lot of criminals, and a lot of war. These harm everyone because of the fact that they can also impact the land and the climate. So there can be a lot of damage done to the land and a lot of damage done to the animals as well. So, on why we have intensity. So we have a lot of when the economy goes downfall, there's a lot of poverty, a lot of hunger, a lot of death. For example, we can see in the Great Depression how much that impacted people. So now we like to weigh. So the economy solves climate change problems with money. It funds the organization that solves climate change. It helps innovate technology that can solve climate change. But does helping solve climate change help economic problems? No. Better climate doesn't equal no world hunger. So they also ignore our point about war and how everybody's impacted by that. So into a world comparison. So in our world, there's balance in the economy. We help sustain the urgent need of the economy, and about how it can downfall really fast, as we can see in the case of the Great Depression. So we also help the environment with people by giving money to these organizations that can help fix nature. In their world, there's an imbalance in their economy and the economy failed. They want to help climate change, but they cannot because they don't have the resources or the money to actually fund it. So no matter how good their intentions are, they cannot fund it, which means all their impacts does not stand and lacks a mechanism. And this is why we believe that opposition takes this debate.
Okay. So our opponent's points were that you need financial support for improving the economy and that economy benefits the poor and is very important. But our third speaker already explained that improving the economy doesn't help the poor people. Our first speaker actually also explained this. The wealth doesn't actually trickle down to the most vulnerable and needy people. And also, B, the harming of the climate always affects the poor more than it affects the rich. Economic benefits will never positively change the economic situation of the vulnerable poor in developing countries, especially the most vulnerable people, such as the one in the countries that rely on tourism or farmers, that is actually a majority. The majority of people that live in like some developing countries, such as the US, don't have the ability to buy air conditioning, as mentioned before, and they can kill and like they have many issues. So and then people that live in slums can also die, and because we aren't fixing these environmental, people can literally like die or suffer from like they might not die immediately, but they can suffer through various long periods. We already told you that the whole debate and the economy improvement will never be used to improve the climate or to help the poor. But also, they said that protecting the environment costs a lot of money. But we said that one, then costing the environment, no, the money that the economy makes does never go to the poor. And second, that we actually don't need that. Like fixing the climate doesn't actually need that much money. For example, ways the motion said that we should like helping the economy, helping like stopping we should like be stopping climate change, and ways to do that is actually just like a way to do that is putting heavy tax on like carbon heavy industries. That's a form of stopping carbon. That's a form of stopping. In fact, this doesn't cost a lot of money, but in turn actually gives us money. So thus that point doesn't really stand. And you can use that money to do more innovations to stop climate change. And also judge the entire time. They always were talking about our worst case scenario where people don't get enough to eat, but actually the people who are in the bottom of the society, aka farmers, the poor, they actually most of the time they actually do have something to eat. Just it's probably not the best stuff. And also they also mentioned that people don't have enough to eat. As I said before, I want to add on to that is that it's an extremely extreme idea. In fact, quite contrary and ironic, masturbation and famine is actually a direct cause of environmental issues. And they're trying to put that. So it's like, if you want to stop this and if you're so concerned about this, then judge, you should be putting money into fixing the environmental issues, and you should be stopping this. So actually, quite contrary to what they said, fixing climate change doesn't make people starve. Not fixing climate change makes people starve.